Welcome, everybody, to Take Your Time, a Persona 3 Reload podcast where we play through Persona 3 Reload in real time alongside their in-game calendar dates. I'm your co-host, Tom Marks, joined as always by Jonathon Dornbush. Jonathon.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. We're back in it. We're in the Persona flow now after like a very packed first couple of weeks of story, but this is like especially for anyone who's played a Persona game before, like we're in the zone. Once you start to get into it, you're like, yeah, I know how this works. I'm a pro. But
there's no cat telling you to go to bed every night.
No. I mean, my dog does, but it's cuz I make him talk to me. So that's just the voice I make up for him. He tells me to go to bed every night.
I was like, we haven't gotten the dog yet.
Oh, spoiler.
Spoilers.
No, it's my real dog. I just do silly voices for him, and he's the one. He demands we go to bed every night, actually. Yeah.
If you are playing this game and you look at the title screen and you're like, why is there a dog in this opening cinematic? I really would love to know, because that's been I think that's sort of spoiled for a lot of people at this point. But I would love to know if that's still in the dark for you.
I don't want to go too far in because we'll obviously get to these things, but there was at a certain point where I was like 60 hours in, and I was like, if I describe to you my party right now, it sounds weird. Like, even as someone who played Persona 5, it's like my party right now is very strange. So I'm excited to talk about that. But we have plenty to go now.
Yeah, let's talk about this week. We played through the dates of April 21st through April 27th, which is the first week of actual free time in the game where you can wander around, do social link stuff. We'll get into all of that. I guess real quick up front, just so people know, if you haven't done Tartarus yet, we're not going to be talking about Tartarus. I think both of us did go into Tartarus this week, but we're going to be saving the Tartarus kind of deep dive conversation about that combat, the mechanics around that for next week, because next week is another week of just free time as far as I am aware. So if you haven't done Tartarus yet, no worries. And if you have, then we're just going to hold that conversation next week. But before we get into the nitty gritty of all of that stuff, we do have our Confidant call out. We want to thank our top highest tier patrons for supporting the show the way they do. So a big shout out and a big thank you to all of them who are supporting at the Palace Ruler tier, which includes Alan, Astral Clock Tower, Damon, Dan F, Danimal Lover 01, Dexter, Goro Akechi, Keegan H, Levin Sanity, Michael V, Philip S, Sam K, Sarah McCarthy, Shade, Default Titus, Tecma, Willie Wang Wang, and Zachary L. Thank you, everyone who supports us. We really do appreciate it. And thank you, all of you, for taking the time to support the show, for watching the show, liking and rating and doing all that stuff wherever. I wanted to break down, we didn't sort of go deep into this last week, our Patreon, which is totally optional, and we love if you can support us. We really, really appreciate it. But the tiers of that, we have 3 different tiers on that Patreon, which is the Phantom Aficionado tier at tier $2, where you can show your support for the show. And I believe, excuse me. And then there's the $5 tier, which is a Member of Seas tier. Gets you a free monthly bonus episode. We're actually going to be running a poll. If it's not already up, we either did run a poll or are about to run a poll. I'm not sure which it is, about what episodes you would want to see for a bonus episode, what we're going to talk about there. And the first bonus episode should be either up or almost up as of this one going live.
It's fun.
Yeah. We record this a little early. Then on top of that, we also get the main episodes at that tier for ad-free, and you get them a day early, so Monday instead of Tuesday. And then finally, there's the Palace Ruler tier, which includes that call-out that I did before. So patreon.com/takeyourtime. You can check it out there. And now, our last little bit of housekeeping, which is our pop quiz from last week, which Jonathan and I accidentally chose the same one. So that was...
I just wanted to be safe. No, it was one of those funny things where it was like, because obviously you did such a phenomenal job with the trivia last season, but I was one of those things where I just wanted to come in just in case, because I'm like, I have played the game, so I didn't want to like put you on the spot. But like the fact that we chose the same question, I was like, oh, he hasn't missed a beat. He's back in it. It's perfect. So no, I'm glad you did.
So the question last time was that there was a character, I think on the 8th, that you see listening to a boombox in the dark hour and then gets melty faced into apathy syndrome or whatever. The question was, what band was playing on the radio? And the answer to that question, do we get anyone who got it right?
We did. Tecma on YouTube got it correct.
The answer to that question was the Bayside Rockers, which is, I hope comes up again. It's a very good, just little throwaway name.
It's a great name. It sounds so much like a Saved by the Bell band. Like, that's
Yeah.
absolutely the band like Zach and the gang would be in when it's like, oh no, we gotta be in the talent show this week. We're the Bayside Rockers. Yeah, I love the name.
It's very cute. And those are the types of details that I like to pull out. You know, there's those little things here and there in the background. So keep an eye out for those. All right, let's jump into this week. April 21st to April 27th. This week in general is a lot of free time mixed with a lot of meeting new confidants and the social link sort of structure and system opening up and being explained to you, basically. It's not a tutorial week. It doesn't feel like an on-rails sort of go do this, then go to bed, like a lot of the beginning of like something like P5 was, or a lot of the beginning of early kind of in a lot of RPGs is. It's just, you know, here's what you're doing in this game. Go do what you want. Go to a cafe, go to, you know, karaoke, go play video games, whatever. And that was cool. It's cool to me to have that freedom that early.
Yeah, I think similar to the way the story does, and like long term we can talk about what works and what doesn't in our opinion, but I think like in the way that the story throws you into the deep end pretty quickly, the game does too here, to your point. There's not a ton of tutorialization. In fact, there's some good stuff this week that you can miss pretty easily. You know, like last week I had said, you should go around and talk to people. There's one or two things I want to ask if you did this week, because the game doesn't like necessarily advertise you should very well, but it's it kind of just opens up and is like, yeah, here's everything. Well, not excuse me, not everything, but here's almost everything you can do. So yeah, there's a lot of choice all at once, less on the confidant side, but I'm curious to hear how you took to things as we jump in.
Yeah. So jumping in at the beginning of this school day, like as you're entering the school, I believe you do meet Kenji Tomochika. Is that his name?
Yes.
I'm still rusty on all the names. 'Cause I'm still
all good. I get it. Yeah.
Which is funny because I didn't even put this in my notes, because I was like, okay, you just meeting some dude, and then immediately he becomes like your best friend and invites you to ramen, and like that relationship escalates quickly.
He's a little bit like Junpei of like Puppy Dog, like, oh yeah, let's just be friends. We're here. Let's do it. Yeah, that first day you kind of just meet him. And again, I did write down, it's really funny in terms of like, to your point last week of characterization of Makoto, like the main protagonist. It does give you the option to be an asshole to him immediately.
Yeah, like very quickly.
You can just be like, what do you want? Like just immediately, that can be one of the dialogue options. It's so funny. But yeah, he's here. You just kind of meet him at first.
It's a quick little interaction, and then you go to this school assembly where they announce that Michiru Kirijo was elected school president, so your navigator is a big deal, a big shot. And there's some kids discussing that she's like the most popular kid at the school, and that also the school is owned by the Kirijo group.
Yeah,
is
so
this
this
like
was
little detail that just gets thrown in there as a battle that won't ever come up again.
So what's funny is I didn't want to mention anything last week, but it actually came up in the first week.
That's what my wife said, is that it comes up on the radio, right, or something like that.
Yeah, there's a few places.
Kirijo's also mentioned.
Yeah, her surname is mentioned there and implies importance, but it starts to unfurl. This is the like, hey, in case you missed those like background cues, which again, it's to that point of like, there's a lot of incidental dialogue in P3 in particular, where it's like, you should go listen and talk to everyone. But yeah, it's not important. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Yeah.
And it's a lot of that stuff where you don't know necessarily what is important and what isn't on first blush. Because some of it is not subtle, right? Like apathy syndrome being mentioned constantly is not subtle, right?
No.
But this Kirijo thing, I totally missed the first mention of it, and then now it's like, oh, she's gonna have some importance in some way, or her family connection is gonna have some importance in some way, which is cool.
Yeah.
She gives this speech at this assembly that is weirdly intense and motivational about digging down into your well of motivation and doing your best to better the school and yourself, and also is sort of nonsense. It's just sort of like political doublespeak a little bit, but It's very sort of firing people up, and everyone's like, whoa, okay.
She's very well rehearsed in the sense of like, you can immediately get a sense of oh, she comes from clearly like a place where she's had to prepare to speak at such a young age already. Like this is not out of the norm for her to some sense. Like there's definitely, I think the fact that that ties into her family clearly being a big deal without going too much further in. But yeah, it's very prim and proper immediately of this kind of characterization.
Yeah. And then you, after that, go to class. You get a chance to sleep in class. I did not sleep because you told me not to sleep in class, and I take your advice seriously.
So what I will say for some people, and we can get into this especially with the free time, is I realize there might be times where you want to up the courage more quickly.
Oh,
and
sure,
so if you feel like you're falling behind, go ahead. But yeah, for me, it's just, especially knowing how long it took me and how close I was on some of the academics in my first playthrough, I just keep recommend doing that. So I'm glad to hear that worked out for you.
Yeah. As you leave, because then you just jump to after school, you see Akihiko getting fawned over by a bunch of ladies. And they talk about, I think this is at the point where they talk about how he's the captain of the boxing team and he has never lost a match. So he's hot. He's hot stuff right there.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't even know the girls' names, right? Everyone is fawning over him, right?
He doesn't want to deal with them. He wants to just go away. So yeah, like the second you guys essentially give him an out because you and Junpei, like Junpei's inviting you to go to the mall and whatever, and he's like, oh, hey guys, we should hang out. And Junpei is like, but what about the chicks, man? And he's like, I don't know anything about them. I'm not with them. They're just, they're tagging along. Yeah, it's really funny.
So Junpei invites you to the mall, and then Akihiko immediately is like, hey, I'm going to go to the mall too, to go to the police station at the mall. Meet me there. So you're going to go to the mall after school. I did write down a little thing, which is if you talk to some of the people in this courtyard, somebody mentions mysteries at the school, is talking about like, oh, there's some mysteries, which, is people, apathy syndrome and weird stuff happening and that sort of thing. But they also mention that there's a sculpture in the art room that moves by itself.
Yeah.
Which I really hope comes up again.
I won't say either way, but what I will say is, without spoiling it, especially around the school and with it around like the areas, you will get like full on side story arcs with these characters if you keep going back and checking in with them. There are two characters in the courtyard. I think one is shy or nervous. I forget how they're described, but then there's another student that they're related to, kind of like their relationship is involved. Like you can kind of see how that evolves. There's some people in the mall that you'll be able to see things evolve. There's all these little bits and pieces, and so it's why I always recommend like keep going back, even if it takes more time, but like I think it is worth doing it just to kind of get the flavor of the world.
And they make it pretty easy to, well, I mean, you have to check the locations, right? But you can see the little dots on your map to see where people you can talk to are. So you could always just go to a location, pull up the map, and you're like, okay, there are some dots. And then you go to those spots, and if the little bubble is gray, it means it's not a new conversation, right? And if it's blue, it is. So they make it, as convenient as they can, I think, to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think with this, it's if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time you get a sense of the world map as well. Right?
Yes. Yeah. It shows it one other time, but as you go to the map, that's this really cool little diorama of the town. And when you moved between locations, your little figure will actually get on the train and the train will move in the little diorama. It's very cute.
Yeah, I love it. It's an interesting, I think, step, like differentiation, from Persona 5. Where you do have so many places to go on your map and like by train and all of that. So this is like what you're seeing is the world. And so it makes the ease of checking in on those places. And that's almost like, I would be really curious to know, especially from people who played the original FES or P3P, like how much of this dialogue is essentially returning, or like if some of these storylines are new, because it does really give you an incentive to, even if the world isn't huge, experience every corner of it as much as you can.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you go to the mall, and you go to the police station for some reason in the mall, and this is just not explained whatsoever. I mean, it's explained in that Akihiko is talking to Officer Kurosawa, who is the weapons and armor dealer for this game, who doesn't know anything about the Dark Hour, but has explained at some point during this week that he just does what he believes is right and sees the kids are good kids who are trying to help the world, so he'll sell them swords.
Yep, Kurosawa is played by the wonderful Liam O'Brien, is such a funny character to run into because, yeah, it's like, here's a cop who is just helping a bunch of kids. And in this world, like, again, I guess not to keep going back to the comparison well, but like for P5, your weapons are not real weapons when you're buying them.
Yeah, right.
They transform. But here, to my understanding, this cop is just straight up selling teens swords and knives and bow and arrows and like, go have fun. Here's some armor for you. Here's some footwear that'll help you. Like,
but that's the funny part to me too, is he's not just selling you weapons, he's also selling you shoes.
Who's his distributor? Like, where?
It's so funny.
Is he robbing the back of a truck, Fast and Furious style? Like, how is he getting such a wide array of equipment? Yeah.
It's very weird, but it's also cool to have this access to this, and he seems like a neat character, and I dig it generally. It's just also very weird.
Yeah. No, it's fun.
So you can buy some items. I didn't buy. I was like, oh, I'll wait a little bit, which ended up being great because then they pretty quickly explained to you that the police station, the back alley police station, police officer selling you contraband, it has a sale every Monday.
Yeah, he does sales. He'll as the game goes on.
Does he have other clients? Like, why is he doing sales every Monday?
Look, there's a lot of questions. I hope it exists out there. I assume there must be fan fiction, but like if there's a story that digs into Kurosawa's background, I would love to know it. He has a sale to the point where he will, I forget if he does this week already, but like he'll text you. So like my recommendation is, don't go to him until you get a text from him, until this guy is desperate for your business, because you can make it by. Like, to be fair, and again, we'll talk about Tartarus next week, I did the first like 15, 17 floors without buying new weapons. So you can get by, especially at the beginning.
Junpei then has to leave. He says he's going to miss the rerun of The Lonely Shogun, which I assume is a show. And then you get kind of just free time to go do what you want to do.
I thought that was going to be your trivia question. I'm so upset. I wrote it down like, here we go, trivia.
That was one I had as an idea, but no, that's not the one I'm going to do. So you kind of just get to run around. You can go to the pharmacy where you can buy meds, but they also have sales on Saturday, so I waited to buy anything there. The pharmacy guy is super cool looking. The character designs in this game are just great.
I love them. Yeah.
Just phenomenal. And then you get to just sort of run around. And I took this opportunity. I know you've played before, but I took this opportunity to just sort of go everywhere and look in every corner and under every rock and get a sense of the world. And it's small, but not tiny, right? It is small, but there's a lot of little places to go and hidden nooks and crannies. I immediately wasted money on the crane game until I won something because I thought I would be able to put it up on the shelf in the room, and then you can't. So I don't know why I did that.
Yeah. I did the same thing my first time around, and I was like, I could tell him about this, but I think it feels like a rite of passage almost, of like that expectation that that's what you're going to be able to do. Yeah.
There's also a dangerous button in that game, which is play until you win something or run out of money.
Yeah, and especially, I would say the money generation, unless you're farming, is not as generous in this game as in P5.
Okay, good to know.
Where like I feel like in P5 a few months in I had 1,000,000 yen no problem, but here,
especially in Royal I feel like really gives you a lot of systems for making money
here. And to be fair, I think like a thing about RPGs that, you know, depending on the difficulty level you want, but like what I'm looking for, especially early on, is like I want those difficult choices. I want to have a little bit of a struggle of, can I afford to buy everyone a new weapon? No. Okay, who should I prioritize? So I think it generally works here, especially, and we'll go into Tartarus. If you learn how to farm smartly in Tartarus, you can get enough money to be okay. But it's a really easy way to sink your money, is that crane game. Yeah.
Yep. The other thing that I think we're going to talk about the same thing here. The other thing I noticed walking around town is Twilight fragments.
Yes.
Everywhere.
There's a lot.
I think I got 12 in this first day or something like that.
Yeah, there is. I don't know the exact number, and I've meant to look this up because I think there might even be a trophy related to it, if I'm not mistaken. But there is a plentiful amount scattered throughout town, and it really does encourage. I think it makes this especially because I did the same thing on my first playthrough. I went to every location, I ran around and interacted with every interactable thing that I could. And there's a lot of Twilight fragments to find, and they will come in handy as you get into Tartarus. Some of the best chests are locked behind using Twilight fragments, so it is absolutely worth taking the time to go around town. And I think some will even appear over time. So you haven't found all of them, to my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they respawned or I didn't know how that worked.
No, it's not going to be like those same locations will have Twilight fragments every week or so. I think it's like once you found one, that's the one you found there. But I do think some appear over time, or I just missed some my first time around.
Understood. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, there's that. So that gives you a really good excuse, a really good reason to, explore every sort of inch initially and get a sense of everything. There's the shrine area. I wanted to bring something up really quickly because you can go to the shrines, and this is a similar sort of mechanism to other things where you can copy cards. You can do help with social stats later on. Something my wife pointed out, which I love, and I did not ever put together, and this is why it's so funny to play this game after playing Persona 5, is you copy skill cards at the Inari Shrine. And Yusuke in P5 is Inari because he's a fox, and his ability is to copy cards.
It's so great. Yeah. Yeah. It's
and
such
I was
a fun
always
thing.
like, why did they, that seemed like he's an artist, but it seemed like kind of a weird link for him to be the one nobody else in the party has like something like that in P5.
Yeah.
And then now I understand. And
you
I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think there's it wouldn't, like, if you just played this game first, and I guess spoilers for people who haven't played P5, I think that's something that, like, we'll catch ourselves on, like, the big story stuff, but very small minutia of P5 is just going to naturally come up because it is our point of reference. Like,
yeah,
it's great when those little moments connect. I think, like, to the point also of seeing character archetypes and having that funny back and forth in my head of, like Junpei is Ryuji. No, Ryuji is Junpei, who is now also Ryuji. Like, there's, that back and forth there, too. There's little bits and pieces, yeah.
And to be fair, the more I am learning about these characters and meeting them, the less I am comparing them in my own head, right? Because they are different. They are not carbon copies of each other.
They do really, you'll see divergence pretty quickly, yeah.
Totally. I went to another thing I did on this first initial thing when I was just exploring is I went to the school nurse.
Good, that's what I was going to ask if you did, yeah.
Mr. Odagawa, who gives you a weird concoction to drink, and then that makes you courageous, and it doesn't take time, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
So, do you know what causes you to get this? Because you can't get this every day.
So I did go back later in the week to talk to him, and it said you should only go to him after you've been to Tartarus, right? Or after you've gone out and fought or whatever, the day after.
Yeah, this is one of those ones. So I missed this my first go around because I actually didn't fully explore the school this first day. I did it like a day or two later, so I missed this opportunity until like a week or two in. And then I was on some like, guide for Persona being like, have I missed anything? And I was like, oh, go to the nurse after every Tartarus. I was like, what? No. So yeah, definitely go visit him. That also might make you shift the nights you go to Tartarus because you want to make sure there is a school day afterwards. So like you don't want to go on a Saturday night and lose it on a Sunday because you can't go to school on Sunday.
Sure.
But it is it's a really helpful way to get courage up quickly. So always go after Tartarus.
Why is he such a creep? Why is he such a creep?
He's just testing things out, man. He's just, figuring things out. Well, that's what a classic school nurse does, They give you
like it.
straight. No, it's the whole. That was actually earlier in the day. I know we're still only on day one, but earlier in the day when you're in Miss Toriumi's class, she's like so sick of it. She's like, I don't want to teach you this. I got bored of it after my last class. Let's talk about something else. Like, the staff at Gekukan High School is so over it.
Yeah, they're all weird, and I love them.
Yeah, it is an eclectic group of teachers you're gonna encounter throughout this whole thing, and Otogawa should probably be arrested.
Specifically what I mean
Yeah.
is that I have met 3 doctors in the 2 Persona games I've played, and all of them have experimented on me.
Do you think the creators of Persona hate standardized medicine? Do they do they hate like the healthcare system? I don't know the healthcare system in Japan, so I'm like, do they just hate it and this is their criticism? But yeah, everyone's just trying their own drugs, man. It's what and he's not just trying I love too that they're all like, we need to test these on teenagers.
It's so he's so creepy.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from Mr. Otogawa. That afternoon I ended up, I don't know what you did to spend your time. I kind of didn't know what to do. There was a lot of different things and I just didn't have my bearings. So I just studied at the library.
I did too. Yeah.
A trend of this week for me is I was just trying to, normally in Persona 5 or whatever, I like to go tall on a thing. I like to focus on one confidant link to try to get that up as high as I can, or one stat to really focus that towards whatever thing I need next. But for this initial week, and I expect this to be for like a week or 2 in the game, I tried to go wide. I tried to do everything once, right?
Good.
I tried to not repeat myself. I tried to just see what everything was like.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to go about it. I went to the library as well today too, just with my whole like get academics up early sort of motif, and you don't really have confidants yet. I also did that my first playthrough, and even doing that a little bit now. Like I did some things this week I never actually did in my first playthrough. I just ignored some things completely because I was like, it's probably not worth it, but I was like, let me try it for the show. I think in a certain case, unless you were trying to play like a perfectly scheduled game of Persona 3 Reload on hardest difficulty, you have a few days to kind of goof off here and there. But there is some timing stuff, and we have a question coming up later that I can like tease toward this, where you will really need to keep in mind. But for this first week or 2, you're good. Like try things out, get a sense, and hone in on what you like for sure.
Yeah, well, the Persona is a very funny game where it walks this line of tip and guide versus literal instructions, right? Because there isn't probably an ideal way to play this game that you could just schedule out and write down and follow a list. But then you're not playing the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's not fully unique in that. Not like no other games do that, but it definitely is different than a lot of other games and a lot of other RPGs, in that if you do want to do that, that's fine, but there is a line that you can cross where you're not really playing it anymore. You're just acting out the instructions that someone else has given you. And that's what we're never going to try to do on this show. We don't want to tell you just like exactly how to play.
No, very much. Like unless you are looking again to platinum or, get all the achievements in the game,
which I respect.
Same. I'm trying to get the platinum on this playthrough, but I'm doing it on a second playthrough. I think like there is some timing stuff in this game that will be really brutal if you don't plan ahead. And so you do need a little bit of instructional stuff, and that is there's a tough relationship there, to your point of like, am I just then following a step-by-step instruction guide? Like, is there any actual joy in doing that? I think there's enough variety in here that you'll be okay if you do really follow it to the letter. But yeah, if you're just playing to kind of explore this world, go for the social links you want, go for the jobs you want. Like you'll be okay.
So that was the afternoon we both did studying.
Yes.
And that night you go back to your dorm, and I wrote down an interesting, you can talk to people and have little conversations. The one that stuck out to me was Junpei talking about what we talked about last week, which is like, why are the evokers gun shaped?
Yeah,
and
I wrote the same thing.
He's fully like, wait, what's going on here? And then we don't get an answer again. It's just a character in the world also questioning it immediately.
I do think, and again, I don't know if this is in the game originally or, just in the remake, but I do appreciate how quickly it kind of brings that up. And again, it's incidental dialogue, but it is the idea of like, hey, it's pretty nuts, this thing we're doing every time we have to summon our persona, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is pretty wild. Yeah, and again, to that point, especially if you want to learn, what I would say is not that Persona 5 was full of them, but this game is definitely like less cutscene heavy than Persona 5 was.
Yeah, totally.
You will almost every night, not every night in the whole game, but most nights, each one of your C's fellow members has new dialogue in the dorm. They might not be on the first floor. You might have to go to different floors to get to them, but almost everyone has a thought that day that is different. And I value how much character you get out of that. And so again, it takes time. If you're not someone who loves reading in games, Persona might be a tough playthrough sometimes for you. But like if you're willing to go through and click through all of that, I think like you learn so much about the characters this way. And yeah, it's really worth it. But yeah.
Yeah, I like too that it's not. I was expecting it to sort of like reset weekly or reset between big events or something, but it does seem like these conversations are sort of rolling, which is neat.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then this is the first time you can really explore the dorm as well. There's not a lot you can do. Stuff will unfold here, so like I realize it seems like there's not much to do here.
But the whole dorm right now just feels like a shell waiting for more people to show up and more things to happen. It doesn't feel like there's, it feels very intentionally like it's left room to grow, right? There's the whole kitchen that's just not usable yet, and I assume will be at some point, and there's, other floors that are just sort of empty right now.
Yeah, but it's a cool space that I do.
Yeah.
I appreciate the extent to which it will, have some more variety in it. But even just getting to check in with everyone each night, get a sense of things. It's fun.
I want to use that computer though. I want to use the computer.
Oh, I have some advice about that as soon as we get to that. I almost want to spoil it, but we'll get there in probably the next week or two.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But
so that evening, you have free time. You can wander around at night again. There's some more things to see at night. I went to an alleyway full of cats.
Nice.
And then, what did you do during the evening? Because I just went to Tartarus.
I did too. I only went to level 5. I just took an easy night in Tartarus.
Okay.
Did you do the whole like area that you can get to?
I did the whole shebang.
Nice.
I went deep, and I just did the whole thing. Because that's how I liked playing Royal as well. Was just, you're wasting evenings if you don't do it in one go, which is a sort of extra way to think about it. And I will admit, it was really fun. The last Persona thing I played was Strikers, and it was so much fun to have that palace feeling again, where the game is basically just SP management, right?
Yeah.
It really is. That is the crux of it. So it was fun to push myself to try to get to the end, and we can talk about this when we dig into Tartarus more next week, but it was fun to try to push myself to the end of it, and it got close at the end there, let's put it that way, getting to the last leg of it.
There's some bosses there we can definitely jump into next week, but
we're going to discuss all of that next week. If you haven't done it all yet, that's fine. We're leaving some room, and we want to go through the new stuff now so that we can talk about Tartarus next week.
Yeah, because we're still on day 1.
Yes. Well, I think it'll speed up a little bit.
It will. No, for sure. But yeah, I just went to level 5. I was like, for those who haven't jumped in, there are sort of clear like floors where you can take a breather. And that's kind of just what I did because I'm actually taking the different approach this time, and I'll talk a little bit about why next week. But
cool. Okay.
I'm kind of going in parts for now. Yeah.
Cool. And to be clear, like, there's the courage after each time you go to Tartarus. So it's not like I'm missing out on multiple free things of courage by not going to Tartarus multiple times, right? And I guess I could just go to Tartarus again.
You could, yeah.
It's so I'm not saying there's not any reason to do it a little slower.
No, I think both are viable options. I'll explain why I'm doing it this way this time next week. And again, we're still early on where if you change course, if I change course, it's all good. Like you have the time, you have the freedom. You're not locked into anything this week whatsoever.
Speaking of, it's a little early for this, but bringing back a tip from our first season, that was a tip I got that I think we both got from patron saint of the show, Andrew Goldfarb.
Our dear Lord and Savior.
If you didn't watch this or listen to the first season with Persona 5 Royal, a nice tip that I'm going to be replicating here is pick an interval, and every few days, like I think I did it every 3 days previously, every 3 days I move down a save slot. And so if you do that, where every 2 or 3 days you move down a save slot, and I know this game has the rewind feature that gives you a little bit more flexibility, but if you do like every 3-ish days or whatever, you move down a save slot and start saving on a new slot, and then you keep doing that, there are 15 save slots. So you can have 45 days worth of backlog of if you need to suddenly realize you've totally screwed up a social link or whatever, you could theoretically jump back up to 45 days worth of time and reload and say, okay, you know what, I'm restarting this and going from pre-whatever milestone I missed. Yeah. So that's a useful little thing if you are trying to be, if it just for me, like I didn't even use it on my 5 playthrough, but it alleviated the stress of walking down an alley that I don't know is a dead end until it's too late.
Yeah, no, it's 100% worth doing. And to that point, we haven't brought it up, but the rewind feature, pretty handy. I did use it a few times in my first playthrough. Haven't yet here because so little has happened.
It's a little shorter term. It's like a day or so, right?
Yeah, it's not much, but it's one of those things where I, without spoiling things, there was like a certain day where things hit, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have wasted that evening doing this. I could have just done this and been fine. Let me go do that, and it helped out. But yeah, it is a short-term fix, whereas this save schedule that we can create, and as you pointed out, is just it helps relieve so much stress just in case you do really run out of time in some terrible way.
Yeah. So jumping on to the 22nd, Kenji invites you to go to ramen during the day. There's not like a ton that happens during school's time, right? That's a theme of this week is I'm not going to mention school a lot because you get to school, you have like a little conversation or you overhear a conversation and then it just goes to after school and you're doing what you want. So this game, again, a theme from what we were talking about last week, moves quick, right?
It does.
It really just lets you go.
Those morning conversations are going to become a staple. Sometimes they're very story related. Sometimes they are just flavor. Like this one is just him asking you about Takaba and us coming to school together.
Right. People obsessed with you. The rumor that you were dating because you showed up on the first day with her or whatever.
Yeah. And so again, it's a chance to be an asshole to your friend if you want to. But yeah, these are going to be pretty frequent conversations. I think they're fun to talk about when they get pretty story heavy, but I do think there's a case where we might just be like, and you talk to this person in the morning and then move on, because a lot of it can just be like, how are you doing today?
Yeah. So you go to ramen with Kenji, and you kind of quickly just become buds, right? he likes you. He talks about the vibe of the place and the secret ingredient that he thinks they must have, and you can be like, yeah, totally. And he's like, whoa, I think I like you even more now because you agreed with me. And he briefly mentions that he has a secret plan, but does not elaborate. And then you get your first proper social link with a bud.
Yeah, it's the magician. Yes, yeah.
And that also unlocks messages and the texting where you can get messages from, like you said, the restaurants. You can messages from part-time jobs. You can also get messages from social links when you have someone who wants to hang out. This Kenji thing really took me off guard because it just is so quick. This character is so unrelated to anything that is going on, right? And then he's your friend and you have a social link with him.
Yeah. I'm trying to not say too much. I think the social links in this game are definitely on a different level than the Persona 5 ones. Yeah. We will go into what that level is as you see more of them, but it is definitely, I think, a different approach to some of them. And also some of these scenes, like even to this point, can be super brief. They can be very much just like, hey, we're having a good time. I agree, we're having a good time. We're friends even more now. It can sometimes be that quick. But yeah, there's some of them go really unexpected places. So yeah, it's really, really just like, we're going to have so much to talk about in a few weeks time. But I don't know what your approach will be going forward. I think we mentioned this last time, but again, a tip, especially with Persona 3, because I think time is even more of a valuable resource this time. If you're going to do a social link after the first one, have the associated persona to be able to maximize your answers.
That's another reason I went into Tartarus the first day is that I wanted to have lots of persona options for if I was going to be doing social links.
Good call. For what it's worth, I believe the first link does not matter for any of these. So
Okay.
like you're gonna just establish the bond regardless, but it's
Right.
yeah, have it for 2 and onward, the different levels of each social link, because it will just help get through a process where you don't want to be having like 6 incidental hangouts with someone in between, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's our first
So
friend.
that evening, first friend that evening, I noticed there were a lot of cats. There are lots of cats on this island. And then sold all our stuff from the Tartarus trip, and then I ended up working at, is it Chagall? I don't know if it's a sh or a ch.
I don't either. I think I've
Let's
said
go Chagall.
okay, we'll go with that.
The cafe. Worked at the
Yes.
cafe as a part-time job.
Yeah, I did the same. This is,
Cool.
without spoiling too much, this was my most frequent job, just because I think
Oh, okay.
you get 2 different stats, charm
Yeah, you
and
get
courage.
courage and charm, yeah.
And so that's just a really easy way to bump those 2 up pretty quickly. So
Yeah, anything that you can do multiple of that gives you multiple of a thing seems like a priority, right?
yes, especially here, there will be some things you learn. Like I think the library just gives you 1 academics.
Yeah.
There will be things going forward that give you multiple, but you might have to pay some money, so it's a trade-off. But yeah, I did the same.
I think I'm going to be talking about that later this episode.
Check your texts when you get the days that jobs are available. The tone of the text may imply whether or not you're going to get more money.
Oh, okay. That's a good tip.
The cafe gets desperate, but they get desperate in the text. And if you go, you get a little more money. So
Okay, this is a thing that we can talk about now that I wanted to talk about.
go for it.
They do a nice little thing where they'll send you texts when there's important things on certain days or whatever. They will also, if you go to the calendar in the menu, you can see exactly which jobs are available on which times of day, on which dates. There are so many different days and things to keep track of.
Yeah.
Like, there's 4 different restaurants or whatever, and some of them are only open or can only be, like, you can only go to certain things on certain days of the week. Some other days they'll be too busy, but it doesn't really explain why they're too busy, or if that's on a schedule was unclear to me. Then there's specials on some days, but some of the specials you need certain stats for, and then there's similar things with, like, the jobs doing that, and then the arcade changes every day, the stock, and then there's also sales at the shops. It's just like a million competing calendars all happening at the same time.
It is, yeah, it's like when you open a like shared Google Calendar among like a team at work, and it just populates with like 20 different colors on like the Google Calendar, and you're like, hold on now, there is no free time in this schedule. It's it's a lot to keep track of, and to be honest, for my first one, I kind of just was like, whatever.
Yeah, you know what I've been using to like kind of have any sort of handle on it is the online thing, where if you have online functionality, you can press a button and it'll pop up and show you what everyone did that day. And at least early on, that's really useful to me because it tells me just like your options are so limited right now in terms of overall things to do. Like I'm sure it will balloon with more confidant links and more places and stuff like that. So since it's a little bit limited right now, I can click that and basically get a list of just like all the things I could be doing that day.
Yeah.
The confidant links I could be going to see that day. And that has helped me sort of get a grasp on it, and I'm just like not trying to worry too much about the dates of the restaurants or whatever.
I think that's a good call to begin with. I actually did that the same. I think Persona 5 had this feature also, and I rarely, if ever, used it. Like I did not touch it, but genuinely on this one, I was like, I'm afraid. I don't want to mess this up too badly. I do want to enjoy what I'm doing, but like I don't want to miss, this. And it's funny, especially on my first playthrough, there were times where it'd be like, oh, go hang out with this person. And I'm like, who is that person? I've never heard of them. So it is actually a pretty useful resource there, to your point of like, if you don't want to make a real calendar for yourself that you can always look at and check for all these days. The biggest thing, honestly, with dates is going to be some confidants are only available on some days.
Right.
And so, especially,
I imagine I'll care more about that than the restaurants.
Yeah, especially as we get further in the game, like when we're saying, what did you do on each day? There's going to probably be a stretch of this game where you and I will have the same exact, like, Sundays or the same exact, like, Tuesdays or whatever. Like, it's very, because if you don't, you may not be able to complete that Confidant. So, yeah, it's don't worry too much right now with jobs and with all of that stuff. But as you learn what you like the most, you'll get a sense of where you need to prioritize.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on. We're on the 23rd.
We've made it so far.
Yeah, I know. Well, the 23rd, you get to school. There's some girls talking about there being more weird people around, and they mentioned the track team, which almost immediately comes back up, where they say, oh, yeah, the track team is taking recruits, and so this is what I did today, was go join the track team. It's an optional thing. You can go hang out with, I think you can hang out with Kenji instead, but I was like, I want to go join the track team.
Yeah, he's available, but the game is leading you to your point of, like, not overly tutorializing, but here it's like, you should join the track team.
Yeah, so you go to meet the track team, you meet Yuko Nishikawa, who's the team manager, as well as they describe him as the future team captain, Miyamoto. There's immediately more rumors that you went out with Takaba on the first day as well. And then you get your social link for the track team, which is great. Another social link. This one's the chariot, which is very fitting.
Yeah.
And then you run into Yuko on the way home and are like, hey, you want to walk home with me, person I just met? And she's like, no. And you're like, all right, bye.
Yeah, it's a very funny, like, hey, I'm new, want to hang out? No, God, no. Ugh, I gotta go.
So that evening, there's new convos with everyone basically on your team back at the base. And then also there starts to be people around town with apathy syndrome that weren't there before, just kind of hanging out. Little details like that are nice.
Yeah, you'll see just people kind of like slumped over in town as you go about. You might see more of them as time goes on.
And then that night I ate at Wakatsuki Kitchen because it gave me academics. And there was a very funny little dialogue that said there was a special plate I could order, but I was not a memorable enough customer in order to order it.
Yeah.
Love that.
You got to become a regular. And be more charming. That's the secret.
Yes.
But yeah, it's I didn't go there. I went to Tartarus again this evening.
Oh.
Up to level 17. Again, just taking it chill, just exploring it at my pace. But Wakatsu is a good, relatively inexpensive academics option for sure.
Cool. 24th. We're on to the next day. This is just sort of another full day of free time. I end up spending it with the track team. I don't know about you. I guess now the track team has just become Miyamoto, right?
Yeah.
It's like practice with the track team, which they do on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, because everything has a schedule like that.
Yeah. Oh, most of your confidants will have a schedule like that I immediately forget.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's essentially the Miyamoto storyline, but Yuko is involved, and there is the wider team as importance, but it is Miyamoto's kind of storyline here. I did the same.
The track team as well? This
yeah.
is an interesting thing that came up. I really like this idea in the that it's introduced here. So you hang out with Miyamoto. He says he sees you as a rival, and I think is really cute about this is that because you've been fighting in the dark hour, which exhausts you, you just like blow everyone away on the track team. You're just so much better than everybody because you just have tons of stamina, which I think is very, very funny. And then you get this level up, and a little tutorial message pops up that says, as you deepen your social links, it can lead to unlocking new ones, right? Which is a really cool thing. Again, coming from P5, where all of the social links, I think, basically all, were either part of the story or you would just go find them in the world and meet someone and be like, you need this social stat, and then you can just talk to them. I love the idea that these are a little bit nested, that by leveling up Miyamoto, now when you run into Yuko again, she says, oh yeah, I'll walk home with you, that's fine, and then you go to a cafe with her and have a new social link, and suddenly that has led to this, right?
Yeah, I think this one's a really good example of the game tutorializing without feeling tutorializing too much. It is very much there will be other confidants that are gated by time or by story, but there are things that are like, hey, you should go talk to this person more, and that'll open this option more. So I really like how that plays out here.
It feels a little bit more like you have your C's life and your school life, and they are sort of two different halves of you, rather than just the school is in service of C's.
Yes, that feels fair for these. Yeah, it's it also feels natural to like how friendships might evolve. Like it kind of makes sense that Yuko might not want to hang out with you after knowing you for 2 hours, but now that you've hung out a little bit more, they're like, yeah, sure, we can hang out. It's you definitely get this side of you that is like, yeah, what's your school life? What's your life outside of being someone fighting in the dark hour? Yeah.
Yeah. So you stop at the cafe with her. She talks about how being a manager is tough, and then you get the social link with just strength. So there you go. And then that evening, I went and I ate at Wild Duck Burger. I ate the mystery burger.
Yeah, strange burgers in this universe is a common thread. I did not eat there this week, but we'll have time to talk about Wild Duck in the future, I think. I went to Wakatsu actually tonight. It's the vibe of Wild Duck is very fun. It's very like fast food wackiness kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's not the Big Bang Burger, but a good option nonetheless.
Well, this is the thing, is Big Bang Burger ended up being a major plot point in that game, so I don't know what Wild Duck means. Maybe it's big.
It's oh god, what's the Doctor Who word? Why can't I think of it? The wolf.
Bad Wolf?
Bad Wolf, thank you. It's just like two word animal. Wild Duck.
Wild Duck.
Yeah. 90 hours in, you're like, oh my god, the duck was the bad guy all along.
Maybe.
You never know. But yeah, it's again, just gives you the flavor of different restaurants in this world, different environments, kind of the different flow of things. Yeah. But yeah, it's a cool little spot. Those are, I think it's worth mentioning too. These are both those restaurants are in the not like the Polonia Mall, but the Iwatodai Station.
The little strip mall.
Yeah.
Right by your dorm.
Yeah.
25th. There's a sale at the pharmacy. I bought some drugs and some cat food, which I brought to a cat in an alleyway, and the cat went, "No, I don't want that. What are you talking about?" I don't know why I bought cat food, but I bought cat food.
Why'd you do that? Why would you assume the cat wants food?
I don't know. It's like it was this whiny cat. It was so sad. And I bought it. It didn't want the cat food.
Well, luckily, cat food never expires, so maybe it'll come in handy in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the. I think again we probably did a similar thing with this, which is it's this opportunity. It's the first day that this bookstore has opened up, so you can go to the bookstore, which I think we probably both did. Meet a very funny old dude who keeps pretending that he's a sushi restaurant, and his wife who just does as having none of it. And they see that you go to the school, and that they mention a persimmon tree that is there. So you can go to the persimmon tree, get them a leaf from the persimmon tree, and then bring it back. And they go, "Oh, wow, this is so thoughtful of you for bringing this." And they introduce themselves as Mitsuko and Bunkichi, or Bunkichi. Great name. And you get a new social link with these old people who run a bookstore, which is very unexpected and adorable.
Yeah, it's so far removed from the rest of your story. I do love that their personality and everything you see about them immediately. I think they're immediately endearing characters. And it's just a really cute introduction to them. And I think shows the idea that you do have this life going on across this little, collection of neighborhoods and spots. Like this is just so not a C's member problem, but it relates to your school. And so there's this
which is nice because you're thrown into C's so quickly. So it's nice that you have interests and friends that are outside of it kind of developing.
Yeah, it's very cute. I love this introduction. And yeah, it starts a new arcana.
Yeah, the Hierophant.
Yes.
That evening, I went and played the arcade for the first time.
What'd you play?
Because there was a game called You're the Answer, which I got academics for.
Nice.
I'm not trying to I'm kind of prioritizing academics, but also I was just trying to do different things as much as I could.
No, go for it. The arcade is a good option, but it is costly.
Yeah, it seems pricey. It was like $3,000.
Yeah, that's my only back and forth with that. I ate at Wild Duck, so nothing crazy happened. Just ate a good burger.
26th is the first full day off. It's the first Sunday where you get to be fully in your own clothes. And you get a text from Kenji basically saying, hey, do you want to go hang out? And I usually try to, at least from P5, I almost always try to take advantage of these because you get like a unique scene, right, a lot of the time. And so I went and hung out with him and went shopping. And he does this cute little thing where he fixes your outfit up, tries to make you look a little better, right? Because you're outside of your uniforms for the first time.
You can also be really offended by his suggestions. Like, how dare you?
How dare you? What do you mean?
Yeah. I did the same thing on this one. I will say with this, in the same way that I believe Persona 5 did this, don't feel obligated to immediately answer.
Yeah.
Especially on Sundays, which is your non-school day, because you might get opportunities you wouldn't get otherwise on those days. But also if you just wait, there might be other texts that interest you more. But yeah, it's a good way to build that bond up.
Yeah. Kenji is growing on me, but we'll see.
Did you hang out with him more this week? Well, we'll find out.
I don't think so, okay. No. And then that evening I just studied at my desk because I had done all the other things that were options for me. So I wanted to try something new. So I just did studying to see what would happen.
Nice. I went and drank coffee at the cafe because despite having worked there a ton, I never just went and had coffee. So I just wanted to see what the scene was like. You drink pheromone coffee, and so you're like, are people looking at me more? What's going on here? Ho, ho, ho. And then you just get a little more charm, I think. But yeah, it's a cute scene. Nothing major there.
Nice. I'll have to try that at some point.
Yeah, it's good, again, to just test that out once.
Also, I really hope it's not actual pheromones. I hope it's just the name of the coffee.
Be a little weird. I mean, it's that whole thing of how is it vanilla natural flavors, like beaver secretion? I think that's like a thing.
I do not know.
Yeah, that's like a thing with, I forget if it's vanilla specifically, but it's like when you see like something natural flavors, it's actually like that. And so it's like, I don't know what the pheromones are. Yeah. Fun facts for you. This is what's in my brain. I can't help it, Tom.
Moving on to the last day, the 27th.
I've made him uncomfortable. Great.
The principal of your school holds an assembly to give a speech that is basically just Kirijo's speech, but bad because he didn't want to get upstaged by a kid a week later.
I love the context of the scene. The idea that it's like, the principal doesn't want to be shown up by a kid.
Yeah.
Is giving a speech just to sound better, and he does a bad job. It's so funny. Yeah, he's a charming little guy, but his glasses are really cute.
Yeah, still love his design.
Yeah.
And then Kirijo comes up to you after or during lunch, I think, and says, "Hey, come meet me after school, and I have a request for you." But first, we have class. We have our first actual in-class thing, I think, all week.
Yeah.
Which is Miss Miyahara, who I just wrote in my notes. Miss Miyahara looks insane. She's got teeth. Her teeth are sticking out or something. It was something like that specifically that I was like, whoa.
Yeah, they're all really bespoke teacher designs. It does really feel
Love
like
it.
It's just how can we, because these are really incidental characters for the most part. So it's how can we just make them immediately memorable is very much the vibe.
Yeah, I totally love that. There's a pop quiz question about spirals, which spiral is not, I can't remember, it was geometric or something like that, and there's a golden spiral. And then I love that they're still doing this thing of these questions kind of tie into the stuff that you're doing outside of school. So the golden spiral Junpei mentions reminds him of Tartarus because it's ever expanding and always looks the same, and it's got that sort of fractal nature to it.
Yeah, there'll be some conversations in class where it's you must know what I'm up to. There's no way.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
After school, Kirijo asks you to join the student council and says basically saying she's super busy all the time, takes up a lot of her work, and she needs backup on the student council for when sees work takes her away from her duties, and she needs to explain why, pretty much, is what she wants you there. She wants somebody to be in her corner who understands what she's going through. And you say yes, and she's like, great, I already submitted all of your paperwork and forged your signature.
Yep.
No, I guess you need to go sign a thing.
But so, she basically like did everything. But yeah, no, I love. Yeah. Mitsuru does not like beat around the bush. She just gets very directly to it and is like, by the way, I've already done X, Y, and Z. It's done. We're doing it. Yeah. I
went and bought weapons on sale, and then went and signed that paper. Cool. And joined the student council.
I did
because I think you're given the option not to, which again is really cool, right?
Yeah.
It feels like a different game would have made the track and team thing, the bookstore, the student council stuff all be just sort of railroaded. And you're incentivized to do that, but you are given the option to sort of go elsewhere if you want.
No, yeah, a lot of this you could technically never do. You'd get kind of bored, I assume, but you could technically avoid a lot of this stuff for a while, to my knowledge.
Wild duck every day.
Until I just had too many mystery burgers. Your character dies of mystery burgers. That's an ending, if you didn't know. But yeah.
So you join the student council. Kirijo introduces you to Hidetoshi Odagiri, who I think he said is in charge of student discipline. And then Chihiro Fushimi, who is a first year, who's the treasurer and is very nervous. And you get this social link through that, which is the emperor. And then I just wrote down so many dates to remember here, because I think that was when they also tell you which dates the student council meets.
Yes, yeah. It's I want to say it's like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Like it has 3 or 4. One of them isn't in there, and I'm like, I don't know. I'll just check the door when I feel like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's another. Again, to the point we were saying earlier of like Kenji's, it's very short, very introductory. And it's just like, we're going to get going. This will be an option later down the line. But it really just kind of like kickstarts this group relationship.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what this week is just, start laying the seeds, planting the seeds for the future.
Yeah.
And then finally in the evening, I did the last thing that I kind of hadn't tried yet, which is karaoke.
Nice. How did it go?
It went well. There was a very funny little dialogue line that was like, somebody's looking at me through the door. I didn't care and sang as loud as I could. It made me feel great, and I got courage. And I was like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, it's a charming little thing. It's really funny how it's like kind of tucked away in the back. Because there is, I don't know if we've mentioned, but there is a Velvet Room door in the Polonia Mall.
Right, so you behind the stairs.
Yeah, so you always have access to the Velvet Room if you want to get different persona to be able to maximize your social links or whatnot. But yeah, that just, if you go up the stairs, it's right there. Yeah, just another cute little fun scene thing. I think what's interesting is I'm sure you've noticed, but it's like there's a lot of closed stores right now as well in the mall.
Yeah, like half of the mall is closed right now.
Yeah, so your options are limited, but a good idea to spread out. I did not do that. I worked at the cafe because I spent a lot of money and wanted a little more back just to be safe. Yeah.
Well, that's the week. That's the getting social links, trying stuff out, exploring town. Jonathan, do we have any questions from those dear listeners and Patreon backers?
We do. We have a few questions from over at patreon.com/takeyourtime. Thank you to everyone who submitted. As always, wanted to start off with Dale, and this talks a little bit about what we were doing earlier, but I think it's good to just like address it early on in the run. Dale said, hey guys, question for you. How are you mapping out your playthrough for P3 Reload? Are you trophy hunting and following a guide to make sure you don't miss anything, or taking it day by day and doing whatever feels right for you? I decided I'm not worried about missing anything or trophies, which makes the game a lot more casual and enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be good just to put a button on this. It came up naturally earlier, but yeah, like I am playing a little more rigid on this playthrough just because I do want to, like, if I'm going to sink another 90 hours into this, I only have a few missing trophies. I'd rather get them all, but,
sure.
I very much spent my first playthrough kind of not caring. I very much, yeah, just what am I into? What are the options? I missed a bunch. Like there are definitely some social links I could not finish as a result. So I'm keeping that in mind for this playthrough to make sure we're able to talk about them, but it's, yeah, I just enjoyed the ride for the first time.
Yeah, I want to see a lot of different stuff. I'm going a lot by vibes and just sort of what do I want to do and when for fun. And then the only thing I really do that is like a priority to me is I want to try to max out my social stats and my social links. And I'm not going to like use a guide to try to rigidly schedule that. It's just sort of like my North Star is try to get those social links as high as I can by the end of it.
So I did want to ask you in terms of that too, not to put you on the spot for, how the show gets made, but in terms of wanting to make sure we address social links where we can and, what we complete. Are you going to be playing along the lines of like, if you can maximize one out, you're just going to go all in on that one if there are not new ones popping up? Or are you going to try to spread the wealth?
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead yet.
Cool.
So we'll see how that goes.
Works for me. Because I have the innate knowledge, so I'm like, once we get to one you've completed, we can talk about it. But it's we'll see how it goes as we go. But again, there's no real wrong or right way to play these games. It's what you want to get out of them. So yeah.
Yep.
Shade also asked, this week gives you access to a lot of your schoolmates as potential social links. Which of them gives you the best first impression, and which of them gives you the worst?
I was not impressed by Miyamoto.
Okay.
That dude seems fine.
Okay.
Kenji seems like a little bit of a sleaze, because they mentioned he's a ladies' man, and there's one line that I wrote down about, like, when he was talking about, like, dating girls or something, and he says, a man's gotta be aggressive in this day and age. And I went, that's weird, Kenji. That's a weird thing to say. Why would you... That doesn't feel great to me that you would say that. But he doesn't seem awful besides that. I have a feeling that he could go either way. He could be kind of gross, or he could be fine.
Well, he's got a secret plan, so we'll find out what that secret plan is soon.
Yeah, exactly. What was her name? Yuko. I liked Yuko. Yeah. Yuko seemed the coolest of the people I've met so far.
Yeah, definitely trying to peel back from knowing where all the stories go. I do think Yuko has a really great introduction and just seems like a chill, good person. So I'm
and
really
Bunchiki.
Yes. Oh yeah. Some MVPs for me. The two of them are. I love the old couple. And then, probably I would go along the same lines. Odagiri isn't my favorite off the bat.
I've seen so little of them, it's hard to even tell.
Yeah, so you'll learn about everyone more. But I think there's a lot of room to grow from here. I did say we're going to talk about Tartarus next week, but Dexter, just because they also asked last week, and I do feel like it's helpful for people to know going forward. How will you guys be tackling Tartarus? Seems like one strategy is to do all of them in one go. At least according to the Power Picks guide that they're following. I seem to recall you guys weren't a fan of that strategy with the palaces, but maybe there's a reason to do that here. I do think we were a fan, so I'm sorry if we miscommunicated that at some point, but we generally preferred to do the palaces in one go because evenings were precious.
I think maybe the hard thing about it with the first season of Take Your Time was that sometimes we had to spend like 10 or 15 hours in a palace, and we had to be playing that palace for the show in a week or whatever.
Yeah. There were some
so that was maybe a little bit of what was tricky about that strategy, but strategically I did like doing that, staying in palaces quickly or going through palaces as quickly as possible. Yeah. And I think I'm probably going to do a similar thing here.
I did it very much so on my first playthrough. I would do as much of a Tartarus run as I could in a go. I'm spreading it out here more now because I want to see how it goes, and without spoiling it too much, your evenings will just generally be lighter than the days on options.
Makes sense.
You can still use them very valuably, but
I was out of SP items at the end of this Tartarus run, so there was a very real world where whether I wanted to get through it or not in one day, I just couldn't, right?
Yeah.
And I just managed to make it.
I think there's a point where if you're doing 2 to 3 Tartarus runs a time, it's not the worst thing to do.
Sure.
But you can also, I did clear almost every Tartarus run in one go, but it got dicey on some of them for sure. So yeah, it's possible. Yeah. But those were the questions we got this week that related to this week. Thank you to everyone who submitted some other broader ones. For what it's worth, I know a lot of people over there are submitting some great questions, but I think they're really great ones for when we get further into the season. So I'm cataloging some of those that work. And thank you to everyone for all the questions so far. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Pop quiz.
Here we go.
We're going to wrap up the show with our pop quiz. for all our listeners out there to let us know what you think answer to this little trivia question is, and then we'll be wrapping up for the day. This week, when you are going to this is a tricky one, because if you fell asleep in class, I don't know if you saw this. If you didn't fall asleep in class, then guess what? You studied and will be ready for the pop quiz that I'm about to give you.
Amazing.
If you don't fall asleep in class, someone else does. Specifically, Kenji. You don't see him, but Miss Toriumi says he has to do an extra assignment because he fell asleep in class, and she gets mad at him. She also says that he has to bring her something along with that extra assignment, and is very specific about what type of that thing it is. So that's the question, is what does Kenji have to bring in with his extra assignment to Miss Toriumi, and what kind of that thing specifically?
I like it because it is truly a missable one. You really had to pay attention in class.
Don't sleep in class. You'll pass the pop quiz if you don't sleep in class.
Oh boy. And Tom, where can people leave their responses if they
you can leave your responses at youtube.com/Dornology. We have a video there. You can go to the Take Your Time Patreon. You can leave a comment there. You can email us at dornology@gmail.com. There's so many places. You can text message us on the social apps. I'm at Tom Mararks on places. He's at JM Dornbush.
You also want to give out your number? And people can just text us directly.
Nah, I'm okay.
No?
I'm okay.
Weird. Huh.
Okay.
Strange. I may also, for what it's worth, I haven't tested this out yet. I might use it as I could do like a Spotify poll or like a Q&A. I might use it as a Q&A opportunity as well. So if you want to try to leave it there, I'll use that as a question too.
Innovating.
We'll see how it goes.
Next week, we will be covering April 28th through, this is so confusing, April 34th. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Which is May 4th. So April 28th through including May 4th. So that's another week of the game.
Just to make the dates even more confusing. But
yeah. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Remember, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast feeds, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, youtube.com/Dornology. We have a wonderful little community that's part of that. You know, the Patreon is also a growing little thing. We really appreciate everyone who has their support there. Leave a review, rate 5 stars if you like us, if you like what we do. It really does help us kind of get the word out there, grow the show, all that stuff. And yeah, I think thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.